So this is the lesson from Monday of last week. I just wanted to kind of go over it again because some of you are making some errors. I think big picture you had the right idea what you were doing, but I think there were some mistakes that were being made consistently that I wanted to kind of iron out and make sure that we weren't going to make those, because the next section where we do what's called compound interest, it's going to be very similar, and I just didn't want these mistakes to kind of follow you throughout what we were doing. So the big thing here, the formula, you're going to take your principal, which again was your dollar amount, times your percentage rate, which is your percentage, and then the time. So the two issues I saw were right here with the rate and at the end with the time. So one thing that kept coming up was the time is set up as a fraction of a year. Now, if your time is listed in months, so like if it were 6 months, that would be 6/12ths of a year, or 1/2, because we all know 6 months is half of a year. But if the time is listed in years, you don't need to do anything to it. So if like your investment is left alone in the bank for 2 years, you don't divide it by 12 because that's already a fraction of a year. It is 2 whole years. So what I wanted to do real quick was just kind of talk about the percents and then the time. Okay, so kind of continuing on with what I was just saying, if your time is listed in years, so if I gave you an investment and it's put in the bank for 3 years, you don't need to do anything. Leave it alone. Leave this guy alone. Okay? If it's 3 years, leave it as 3 years. If it's, 5 years, leave it as 5 years. However, if it's listed in months, okay, so if you're setting up this formula and you're evaluating something for 3 years and you type in, times 3 at the end, that's great. Now, if you switch gears, when you go to 9 months, if you don't make some sort of adjustment to that, if you just leave it as 9, it's going to calculate as if you left that investment alone for 9 years instead of 9 months. So what we do is we set that up. If it's in months, only in months, you're going to divide that by 12. Now, what that does is it, in the formula, without us really knowing it, it's converting that to 0.75 years, right? 9 months is 3/4 of a year. You don't have to worry about the decimal. It's going to kind of take care of itself. If it's in months, and I'm stressing this again, months, if your time is listed in months, you need to divide by 12. If it's listed in years, leave it alone. So you're going to have to read these kind of closer and make sure, if it's years, leave it alone. If it's months, divide it by 12. The other mistake that I was seeing consistently is if you had a percentage that was a decimal, like if it were 3.5%, a lot of people in their calculations converted that to 0.35%. I realize that most of you are used to seeing a 2-digit decimal for a percent, but if your percent is already a decimal, when you move this decimal point 2 places to the left, that creates a gap. You fill in with the 0, so you're going to have 0.035 for your decimal of your percent. So just be careful. There's really no limit to what your decimals can look like for your percent. So if you set up something like if it were 4.25%, and these decimal percentages are not uncommon, especially when you start looking at interest rates paid by banks or interest rates charged like some sort of mortgage loan. So this one converted to a decimal so we can do the arithmetic will be 0.0425. Okay, just be aware of those two things, and then for the most part, your calculations are fine if you get those set up right. So I've got $2,500. That's my principal being invested at 3% for 9 months. That's how I would set that guy up. 12,500 at 5% for 3 years. Now that guy I'm not going to divide by 12. 25,000, that's an ugly 5. 1.5% would be 0.015 for 18 months. 250 at 2% for 6 months. So divide by 12, 2,500, 3%, I'm sorry, 3.5% for 2 years, and then 2,500 at 4.25% for 9 months. Okay. Again, I'm not worried about your actual work on the calculator. I'm worried about you getting it set up right. Okay. So get it set up right and give these a shot. Your homework is a spreadsheet, right? Just like we've been doing. However, I'm going to ask you an additional question on these where after you calculate it, I want you to tell me the new balance. So when I calculate this first one, when I calculate this first one, it's $56.25. That's the interest. If I ask you for the new balance in the account, you're going to add back on the original investment amount. So your new balance is $2,556.25. So you're going to be giving me two answers on these. You're going to be giving me the interest, and then right next to it, you're going to add on the principal to give me the new balance. Both cells will turn green when you enter the correct information.